Samantha and Michael, an Australian newlywed couple, boarded a luxury cruise to celebrate their marriage, but when Samantha's secret affair with the ship's captain came to light, their dream voyage spiraled into jealousy, betrayal, and a gruesome murder that stunned everyone on board. Samantha's story began in Sydney, where she grew up in a modest neighborhood, always dreaming of a life larger than the one she knew. From an early age, she carried with her the quiet strength to face challenges most would never understand. After years of struggle, she embraced her identity as a transgender woman, determined to live truthfully and unapologetically. That decision marked the start of a new chapter, one defined by courage, resilience, and an unshakable belief that happiness was something she truly deserved. In time, she built a career in event management, a field that allowed her to channel her creativity and organizational skills. Her success was not only professional but also deeply personal. She had created a life she could finally be proud of. It was at a mutual friends gathering in Melbourne that Samantha first met Michael. He was confident, charming, and carried himself with the ease of someone used to being noticed. Their first meeting left a lasting impression on both. Michael admired her elegance and confidence, while Samantha was drawn to his ambition and intensity. Their conversations flowed easily, and within weeks, they were seeing each other regularly. Michael, a businessman, often traveling for work, seemed captivated by Samantha's ability to find joy in small moments. Whether it was a quiet dinner or a spontaneous walk along the harbor, their relationship moved quickly, and while friends cautioned Samantha about the pace, she brushed aside their concerns. For her, Michael represented stability and the promise of a shared future. After years of facing judgment from others, she found in him someone who appeared to celebrate her for who she was. Within months, Michael proposed during a weekend trip to Queensland. Surprised and overwhelmed with emotion, Samantha said yes, convinced she had found her forever partner. The wedding was lavish, held in a grand Sydney venue with sweeping views of the water. Guests remembered the glow on Samantha's face as she walked into the reception, her gown shimmering beneath the lights. Michael stood tall beside her, his smile wide for the cameras and the crowd. Together, they looked like the perfect couple, united, glamorous, and ready to start their new life. Yet behind the photographs and toasts, subtle tension simmered. Michael's possessive streak showed in small ways. The sharp glance when she laughed too freely with others, the quiet silences when he felt overlooked. Still, the magic of the day seemed to outweigh those shadows. For their honeymoon, they chose a luxury cruise that would take them through the Pacific. Stopping at islands and offering endless days of sun, sea, and escape, Samantha was thrilled by the idea of a floating city filled with promise, while Michael relished the exclusivity and prestige of such a trip. In the days leading up to their departure, Samantha shared photos of her luggage neatly packed and a caption about how dreams were finally becoming reality. Her friends filled the comments with well wishes, while Michael remained more private. Posting little but assuring those around him, he was ready to begin this next chapter. As they boarded the massive ship, the sun reflected off the water and music filled the air. Crew members welcomed them warmly, passengers bustled with excitement, and the vast horizon stretched endlessly before them. To the outside world, it looked like the beginning of a love story that would last a lifetime. But within the confines of their suite, hidden from view, fault lines were already forming. Lines that would later split wide open and turn their honeymoon into a story of betrayal, violence, and tragedy that no one could have foreseen. The first week on the cruise ship unfolded like a dream for Samantha. She loved the novelty of waking up each morning to the gentle rocking of the waves and the sight of endless blue stretching across the horizon. The ship itself was dazzling, a floating world with multiple decks filled with shops, restaurants, pools, and theaters. Samantha was especially captivated by the formal dinners, where she could dress in elegant gowns and feel every bit the bride she had always imagined she would be. Michael walked proudly by her side, but his smiles never seemed to reach his eyes. At first, everything seemed picture perfect. They spent their mornings sunbathing by the pool, sipping cocktails under wide umbrellas. In the afternoons, they joined excursions to small islands, where Samantha wandered through markets filled with seashell jewelry and spices. And Michael posed for photos he rarely bothered to post. In the evenings, they danced in the lounges and watched shows in the ship's grand theater. To others, they looked like newlyweds living their best days, but cracks were already beginning to show. Michael grew impatient. When Samantha wanted to take too many photos, or when she struck up conversations with strangers, she was naturally friendly, curious about the lives of people around her, and that charm drew others in, easily. But Michael saw her openness as a threat. His jealousy surfaced in tight-lipped expressions and clipped tones, even if he rarely voiced them aloud in public. Samantha, who had spent her life fighting to be accepted, felt the sting of his disapproval, but tried to dismiss it as simple adjustment to married life. It was during one of the formal dinners that she first met Captain Adrian. He was a striking man with years of experience at sea, known among passengers for his confidence and charisma. That evening, Michael had excused himself after too many drinks, leaving Samantha alone at the table. Adrian noticed her sitting quietly and struck up a conversation. His presence was commanding yet comforting, and he spoke about faraway places, storms weathered, and the freedom of life on the ocean. For Samantha, who had always longed for a life of exploration and discovery, his words resonated deeply. Over the following days, their paths crossed more often. Adrian seemed to appear when Michael was absent, offering Samantha light conversation and gentle attention that contrasted sharply with her husband's growing temper. What began as polite exchanges soon turned into secret glances and quiet moments stolen in less crowded parts of the ship. Samantha felt conflicted. She had just married. Yet the excitement and understanding Adrian offered stirred something inside her that she could not ignore. Meanwhile, Michael was becoming restless. He drank more each night, often staying out late and returning to their sweet and foul moods. The crew noticed his temper, though they said nothing, accustomed to guests who behaved badly at sea. Samantha, however, could not ignore the tension building between them. She felt as though she was living two separate lives. The dutiful wife by Michael's side, and the woman discovering something new and dangerous with Adrian. To the other passengers, the newlyweds still looked enviable as they strolled the decks under the stars. But beneath the surface, their marriage was already beginning to unravel. The calm waves carried them forward, yet each day drew them closer to the breaking point where love, jealousy, and betrayal would collide with devastating consequences. As the cruise entered its second week, the boundaries Samantha had tried to maintain between her marriage and her growing connection with Captain Adrian began to blur. The secrecy added an intensity she had never experienced before. Late at night, when Michael stumbled back to their suite after hours of drinking, Samantha found herself restless, slipping quietly away under the guise of exploring the ship. Adrian was often waiting, his presence both thrilling and dangerous. Their meetings were brief, hidden in shadowed corridors or on deserted decks, but the emotions they stirred were undeniable. For Samantha, it was a taste of freedom, an escape from the tightening grip of Michael's possessiveness. Adrian fascinated her. He spoke with ease about his years at sea, the isolation, the beauty, the danger, and the loyalty required to command a vessel of such magnitude. With him, she felt seen and admired, not scrutinized or controlled. She began to crave those moments, the way he looked at her as if she were more than just someone's bride. But with every stolen encounter, the risk grew heavier. The ship was not endless, and secrets could only remain hidden for so long. Michael, meanwhile, grew suspicious. He noticed Samantha's absences, her distracted expressions, the way she seemed less eager to spend time with him. At first, he told himself it was the exhaustion of travel, the adjustment to married life. Yet the more he watched, the more his temper simmered. His insecurity manifested in sharper words, longer silences, and sudden bursts of anger that left Samantha shaken. Passengers nearby occasionally noticed the tension, though most dismissed it as the normal friction of a young marriage. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky turned crimson, Michael confronted Samantha in their suite. Though his words remained low, his demeanor was threatening. She avoided his gaze, sensing that if she admitted anything, the consequences could be dire. Instead, she deflected, insisting she was merely overwhelmed by the constant activity. Michael's suspicion, however, had already hardened into something darker. He decided to keep an even closer eye on her movements, determined to uncover whatever she was hiding. Unaware of how closely she was being watched, Samantha continued her secret rendezvous. She convinced herself that Michael would not notice, that the vastness of the ship protected her. With Adrian, she felt alive in a way that both thrilled and frightened her. He too seemed drawn into the intensity of their encounters, though he carried himself with the measured control of someone accustomed to risk. Neither of them could fully acknowledge the danger of what they were creating. A triangle of love, betrayal, and suspicion confined within the steel walls of a ship surrounded by endless ocean. The tension reached new heights when Michael spotted Adrian lingering near Samantha one afternoon on the upper deck. The captain's attention appeared casual to others, but to Michael, it was confirmation of what he had feared. Rage boiled inside him, though he forced himself to remain silent. He was not ready to confront them publicly. Instead, he began planning, waiting for the moment when he could turn suspicion into certainty, and certainty into retribution. The ship sailed smoothly across calm seas, but for Samantha and Michael, the journey was spiraling toward turbulence far more dangerous than any storm. Each passing day drew them closer to a reckoning that no one on board could see coming, a collision of secrets, and fury that would shatter the fragile illusion of their honeymoon forever. The fragile balance on the ship began to collapse as Michael's suspicions turned into a relentless obsession. He no longer trusted Samantha's explanations or her soft reassurances. Instead, he monitored her every move, his eyes following her across the dining hall, on the pool deck, and during evening events. To Samantha, the walls of the ship began to feel like a cage, each narrow hallway echoing with the weight of her secrets. She tried to maintain the appearance of a devoted bride, but the tension between her and Michael grew more visible with each passing day. Other passengers whispered about the couple, noticing their strained expressions and cold silences, though none could guess the storm that was about to erupt. Michael's certainty deepened after he quietly followed Samantha late one night. He watched as she slipped through the shadows of the upper deck and found Adrian waiting near the railing. The sight struck him like a blade to the chest. Every suspicion, every sleepless night, every knot of jealousy was confirmed in that single moment. He saw Samantha lean close, her body language filled with trust and intimacy, and Adrian respond with the ease of someone who had already claimed her affection. Michael did not rush forward or shout. He turned away silently, retreating to their cabin with fury brewing like fire in his veins. From that night onward, Michael's behavior shifted. He no longer confronted Samantha directly, but instead sank into a brooding silence. His mind worked feverishly, consumed by the betrayal he believed had humiliated him. In his eyes, the woman he had married only weeks before had disgraced him, and the captain, a man of authority, had mocked him by taking what was his. He felt cornered, powerless, and increasingly unstable. To Michael, there was only one way to regain control: through vengeance. Samantha sensed the change. The coldness in Michael's gaze, the sharpness of his movements, the way he seemed to linger near her without speaking, it all unsettled her deeply. Yet she did not pull away from Adrian. If anything, her fear of Michael pushed her closer to the captain, seeking safety in his presence. She confided in him that her marriage was unraveling, her words spilling out with desperation. Adrian listened, offering comfort, but he underestimated the danger lurking just beyond Samantha's awareness. Michael began preparing for the inevitable. He drank less, slept little, and studied the ship's layout with quiet calculation. Every corner, every darkened hallway, every access point became part of his plan. He waited for the perfect opportunity, a moment when Samantha would be vulnerable, isolated, and unable to call for help. His anger no longer erupted in bursts, it had crystallized into a chilling patience. The ship continued its voyage under clear skies, passengers dancing, laughing, and indulging in the pleasures of luxury at sea. But beneath that surface, a tragedy was brewing. Samantha's secret affair, Michael's festering rage, and Adrian's unsuspecting involvement were all threads tightening into a deadly knot. The calm waters surrounding the vessel betrayed nothing of what was about to happen. Yet fate was steering them all toward a night-drenched not in romance or celebration, but in blood. The night of the murder began like any other evening aboard the cruise ship. Passengers dressed in their finest attire filled the dining hall with laughter and music, their joy echoing through the vessel. Samantha appeared radiant in a flowing gown, her smile bright but masking the unease that had been growing inside her. Michael sat beside her, unusually calm, his demeanor so composed that it seemed almost unnatural. Those who glanced their way saw a couple enjoying their honeymoon, unaware that beneath the polished surface, fury and despair were colliding. After dinner, Samantha excused herself, claiming she wanted fresh air. She wandered to the upper deck, where the moonlight bathed the ship in a silvery glow. The ocean stretched endlessly in every direction, its vast silence soothing her restless thoughts. Adrian soon appeared, as though summoned by her loneliness. They stood close together near the railing, their voices low, their connection undeniable, even in the quiet of the night. For Samantha, it was a fleeting escape, a chance to feel alive again. Neither of them noticed the shadow watching from a distance. Michael had followed, his rage burning brighter with every step he took. When Adrian left to attend to his duties, Samantha lingered at the railing. It was then that Michael approached. His face was tight, his movements deliberate, his silence more terrifying than any outburst. Samantha's heart pounded as she realized the confrontation she had been dreading was finally upon her. Michael's fury, long contained, erupted in a storm of violence. Passengers later recalled hearing faint cries carried by the wind, but in the vastness of the ship, most assumed it was nothing unusual. The details of that night remained clouded in mystery, but what is known is chilling. Michael attacked Samantha with a ferocity that left no room for escape. The struggle was brief, brutal, and silent against the roar of the waves. When it was over, Samantha's body was gone, cast into the dark waters that swallowed her without a trace. Michael returned to the cabin, his clothes disheveled, his expression vacant. To those he passed, he offered curt nods, nothing to suggest the horror that had just unfolded. By morning, Samantha was nowhere to be found. Crew members searched the ship, announcements rang out, and passengers grew restless with speculation. Some believed she had slipped and fallen. Others whispered about her fragile state of mind. Adrian, shaken and guilt-ridden, said little but carried the weight of his own involvement. Michael feigned shock, joining the search parties, his performance convincing enough to mislead even those closest to the investigation. Authorities were alerted when the ship docked, and an inquiry began. Witnesses offered fragments of truth, strange tensions between the newlyweds, Samantha's closeness with the captain, Michael's brooding temper. Yet without a body, the case faltered, leaving unanswered questions and suspicions that lingered long after the voyage ended. Michael returned to Australia alone, cloaked in grief that many accepted as genuine. Adrian resumed his duties at sea, haunted by guilt and silence. Samantha's disappearance became one of the ship's darkest legends, a story whispered by passengers who sailed on future voyages. Her fate remained uncertain in official records, but those who pieced together the fragments believed the truth was clear. A love story built on dreams had ended in betrayal, violence, and a gruesome murder that the ocean had buried forever. The waves carried on, indifferent, leaving only shadows of a tragedy that could never be undone.